Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes. I would like to thank the All Indian Ophthalmological Society and Professor Namra Sharmata for this invitation to present on a new IOL power calculation formula named Pearl DGS. I would also like to thank all the co-authors and colleagues listed on this slide, and we do not have any financial interest. I cannot thank my colleagues Guillaume de Bellemanière and Alain Saad enough for their indispensable contribution to establishing this formula. We have no financial interest, and the access to the formula is free at iolsolver.com. This recent publication provides an open source overview of all the details and key steps in IOL power computation with the Pearl DGS formula. This is the first time that the details of a modern formula have been disclosed with the aim of sharing knowledge and contributing to improving that formula. The development of the formula was facilitated by the help of various partners, such as BVI Physiol and Canadian colleagues, and the previous work of famous pioneers in the field. The Pearl DGS formula is a so-called hybrid formula because it relies on an optical computational core, but uses artificial intelligence for the prediction of the position of the IOL, which is considered as a thick lens, which makes it possible to take into account the design differences between the IOLs. In optical biometry, peaks are obtained when light takes an identical time and not an identical physical distance between 2 points. An empirical fix was published by Dr. Cook to modify the actual length, and it is used in the Pearl formula. Up to 6 predictive biometric parameters are used to predict the effective lens position, and the formula is compatible with all IOL models. And as we will see, it would work best if the design characteristics of the IOL are known. The ELP prediction itself is accomplished through the combination of several machine learning algorithms. Accurate ELP prediction is crucial because a millimeter deviation in predicted position induces an error of about 1.50 diopters with a 22 dioptric power lens considered as a thin lens. But for the same deviation of 1 millimeter, the error is 2.25 diopters for a 30 dioptric power IOL. However, the average thickness of an IOL being of the order of 1 millimeter, we understand that it is important to take into account the physical characteristics of the IOL. Indeed, for the same power, 2 IOLs positioned at the same anatomical distance from the cornea will, in reality, have a different power depending on the position of their principal planes. For the same thickness and a comparable position of the haptics with respect to the optics, 2 IOLs of different design must occupy identical positions, but can have a different optical effect even if their labeled power is the same. To make this even more complex, the position of these planes varies for the same model depending on the power of the IOL. The Pearl DGS formula is optimized to best manage this type of problem. We used supervised learning to predict the effective anatomical position of the principal planes of the IOL. The first step was to establish the formula, making it possible to back calculate the effective position of the principal plane of the IOL in an operated eye, of which we know all the preoperative biometric parameters, the power and the type of the IOL placed, as well as the post-op refraction. If we know the position of the theoretical planes and the design of the IOL, we can calculate the anatomical position of this IOL. We were then able to estimate the anatomical position of the IOLs since all the eyes of the dataset had received the fine vision lens of which we knew the precise design. That is, the radius of curvature of the front and back surfaces, the index of refraction, and the thickness. Once established, this algorithm can be used to predict the expected anatomical position of the IOL. Once this position is predicted, an optical formula can be applied to predict the IOL power to be applied. For this, it is optimal to know the geometry of the IOL that will be inserted in order to know the position of its principal planes, which determines the predicted effective lens position. This diagram summarizes the main steps for the calculation of the IOL power. From a certain biometric data, the expected anatomical position of the IOL is predicted. This position is then injected into an optical formula after the thick character of the IOL has been taken into account and the position of its principal plane has been predicted. Then we can solve the equation that gives the power of the IOL to be applied to obtain the refraction R in a spectacle plane at a distance d that is expected for the patient. We have established regression formulas with a constant A that make it possible to adapt the formula to IOLs whose geometry is unknown. When the posterior corneal radius is known, it is possible to enter this information in the formula. However, if the posterior corneal radius is not measured, an algorithm designed on a preliminary study makes it possible to predict the value of the posterior radius thanks to regression formula, so as to obtain a more precise value than with the approximation based on the keratometric index and the anterior radius of the cornea. This slide shows results for the Pearl as well as other formulas that have been compared for accuracy in various recently published independent studies. In green are the median of the absolute error value for which the formulas were the best, and in blue those where they were in second position. We encourage you to use this new formula, which also presents exciting options for eyes with refractive surgery, as well as to take advantage of the results obtained for a patient's first eye. This is the second eye option. A recent study confirms the validity of this approach. We are encouraged by the results of a recently published independent meta-analysis that places Pearl DGS first among all recent formulas in the accuracy of IOL power calculation for short eyes. This reflects the precision of the prediction of the position of the IOL, because for these short eyes, which receive high-power IOLs, a deviation from the predicted position induces a greater predicted refractive error. We invite you to use the Pearl DGS formula for standard eyes and special eyes, such as short eyes or post-refractive surgery eyes. I have put online on my website a section dedicated to the problem of IOL power calculation in thick lenses, which I hope can be useful. Thank you very much for your attention.